Hello, I'm C. Bacon the Bacon. On C. Bacon the Bacon, I will be discussing the film Across 110th Street. Now, what are you doing? Who are you? I don't know why you're talking to me. Questions you could be having. Well, my name is Sebastian. As you're aware, this is a YouTube channel. On this channel, I will discuss the art of film, my opinion of these films, and what I think is cool about the films, sometimes. Now, you could be also thinking, there are so many other film reviewers, Sebastian, and analyzers who already do this. What makes you so different? Well, to me, I think it's that my first video is on a film called Across 110th Street, a relatively forgotten film. When you think of the 1970s filmmaking scene, what do you think of? Or maybe, who do you think of? Films such as Taxi Driver by Martin Scorsese, Jaws by Steven Spielberg, The French Connection by William Friedkin, Star Wars by George Lucas, Carrie by Brian De Palma, The Godfather by Francis Ford Coppola, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Milos Forman, A Clockwork Orange by Stanley Kubrick, Blazing Saddles by Mel Brooks, Dirty Harry by Don Siegel, The Long Goodbye by Robert Altman, Suspiria by Dario Argento, Being There by Hal Ashby, or Chinatown by Roman Polanski. The filmmaking scene of the 1970s is filled with many acclaimed directors who made multiple films that continue to be talked about today. Yet there is one film I feel that we talked about more, and that film is Across 110th Street. Like I had mentioned earlier, the film is relatively forgotten and is part of the blaxploitation wave of the 1970s. Blaxploitation was a response to what African Americans had gone through throughout all of America's existence, the injustice they had suffered, as well as a response to how African Americans were portrayed in the media at the time and who was popular. Of course, you had stars like Sidney Poitier, Harry Belafonte, Sammy Davis Jr., and Bill Cosby. However, in blaxploitation films, the films allowed black characters to be the leads in films rather than sidekicks, supporting characters, or victims of brutality. The leads would be people who would usually be overcoming the man, which represented the emblems of the white majority which oppressed African Americans. You had, depending on who you are, the blaxploitation wave began with Melvin Van Peebles' Sweetback's Badass Song, Gordon Parks' Shaft, Gordon Parks Jr.'s Superfly, where all three of these films could be considered as opening up the market for blaxploitation films becoming popular among audiences in the United States. However, I would like to mention you might consider the film Cotton Comes to Harlem as starting the blaxploitation wave. So, you never really know. Honestly, it depends on who you are. But I digress. The film Across 110th Street may look like the average run-of-the-mill crime film. A group of criminals in way over their heads. They steal a bunch of money from the mob. It turns out it's not a very good idea because the mob is really petty. However, a lot more is tackled in a film than what meets the description. Across 110th Street is an unflinching look at inner city life, police work, and the criminal underworld. The film's cast includes quite the actors. For starters, it has Anthony Quinn of Lawrence of Arabia and La Strada, Yaphet Kotto of Alien, Midnight Run, and Blue Collar, Anthony Francesco of Tenebrae and Facing the Crowd, Paul Benjamin from Do the Right Thing and Escape from Alcatraz. It also has a guy with the coolest voice in cinema.
We have son of a bitch, we're in for trouble. The old man's son-in-law.
The film portrays the criminal world in an unflinching way, so there's no glamorization of the criminal life, or in fact any of the lives portrayed or occupations in the film. Usually with films, Of course, then and even now, there's always this, it's wrong, but there's always sort of this coolness factor to it. Say in Scarface, you see Tony Montana with all this wealth that he's acquired from selling drugs. Of course, spoiler, he dies in the end, and his sister, he loses his family, he loses his sister. She says a lot of weird things. But you think, wow, that's cool, almost in a way, even though the film is trying to show that it's really, in the end, you're all alone. Same with another film, like The Wolf of Wall Street. Of course, the message of the film is that all of what Jordan Belfort was doing was wrong. Beating women, drugs, violence, scamming people. That's not right. But you can't help but look at the way he lived, the cars he drove, the house he lived, and the women that he was with. Can't help but think, wow, imagine if that was me, or all the other stockbrokers too. Is that the Italian mafia are in the film. And in this film, they're portrayed as pretty much the worst people. Like previously I said, films like Scarface, but also a film like The Godfather by Francis Ford Coppola. A film that came out the same year as Across 110th Street in 1972. In The Godfather, the film portrays the mafia as being honor-bound. In the mafia, the family is the most important thing. While in Across 110th Street, the Italian mafia sucks. There's nothing cool about Nick DeSalvio. He's a racist, as well as being a sadist. With the criminals that he may or may not catch, I don't want to spoil the film, but let's say there's people that he catches up with. There's people that he needs information from, right? He will do it in the worst way possible. He gets the people and he enjoys the torture. He enjoys saying slurs at the people who... And he's looking for them in Harlem. He has to look because his boss, who's his father-in-law, tells him he has to get this money that's been stolen, which is $350,000. Law enforcement as well in the film, who are the protagonists, aren't really good either. The captain, played by Anthony Quinn, Captain Vitelli, is a racist when he is told that Lieutenant Pope will lead the investigation of the murders committed by the three criminals. It's hard for Captain Vitelli to accept the fact that a black man, Lieutenant Pope, is leading the investigation. The officers comment on this. This is from downtown. Captain Vitelli threatens to leave the force. His fellow officer states that that's what the people downtown would want. It's woke before being woke was a thing, Being woke just has always been around. They complain, the officers, that they've simply put a black man in charge of the investigation because, well, he's black, that it's forced. Sound familiar? The two characters at first, Captain Vitelli and Lieutenant Pope, do not get along with each other very well at all. But however, later on, they seem to both respect each other. While they never really do become buddies, they both respect each other for what they're able to accomplish, which I think feels realistic. The criminals will steal the money. Jim Harris, Joe Logart, Henry J. Jackson sell the paranoia of getting caught by the mob or the police. The three are able, once one of them is caught, the rest, you believe their paranoia. Jim Harris is the main character out of the three criminals. Sells his desperation. As he comments, he says that he was a criminal and that in America there is no opportunity for him left. The film is very relevant today and back then, maybe even more today. Let's talk about corruption. I forgot to mention, for Captain Mattelli, you think, well, he was a good cop, but it later turns out that even he took bribes, which no one is given any leeway. Even Lieutenant Pope gets aid from Bumpy Johnson. And so possibly giving the film a chance. To me, blaxploitation was an interesting era for film. A subgenre of films where African Americans did not make films to fit in, but simply just to be, to not feel the need to conform to society, that they were their own society. They were their own people, their own culture. Thank you.